it's so loud.
Hello, this is
Dean
Dean.
Dinning.
Hello, Visalia. You're on the air.
Well, no. You're starting to sound like you're doing my job.
That's right.
How are you doing? Good to have you on the phone with me.
Doing great. How are things going for you guys?
Going well. I want to start off. I know we've got 15 minutes or so. Well, a couple of things. One, I'm recording video of our conversation that I'll post later. So that will be completely unedited. The audio will be edited because I'm telling you right now, at some point, I'm not sure if you were warned, but at some point during our conversation, I will be going full fanboy because I got into you guys, seriously, 1991 when Fear came out. I was going to San Francisco State. And I was living in the dorms, top floor, Mary Ward. We called it the penthouse because, well, it was. And you couldn't pass by anybody's room without hearing either Nirvana or Toe the Wet Sprocket coming from the door. And maybe a little bit of smoke as well.
Strangely enough, I have heard that many times at various colleges across the country. That was the case.
So it was an interesting time going to school and having that scene break where you had groups that were as hard as Nirvana were into alternative, and with you guys with the sound that you created. And I saw an interview with Glenn Phillips not too long ago. He was a metalhead when you guys first met up. How did the band not go in that direction?
I think by the grace of God, probably. I actually was raised Catholic, so I was afraid that I was going to be punished for listening to heavy metal. So I curbed it myself by starting to listen to my older brother's record collection, which included a lot of Elton John and James Taylor and a lot of things that you would call classic FM rock.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's something that just happens when you grow up playing the guitar. I mean, the metal stuff is so fun to play, and the sound of it is so, there's something about it that it's going to make your parents angry, so that's very satisfying.
And I remember Glenn back in the day seeing the pictures. I never saw you guys live at that point, but he definitely had the hair for it back then.
For sure. Yeah, he didn't have that hair for very long. He got rid of it fairly quickly, but yeah, he could have gone full metal.
So how did you guys get together? And correct me if I'm wrong, but from, again, what I've seen in conversations that Glenn has had and the few that I've seen you talk about, it seems like it was Glenn and Todd Nichols got together first. How did you get into the mix of then, and then where did Randy Gus come in?
Well, we all went to the same high school, and we were seniors when Glenn was a freshman, and we were all in theater class together. And we had kind of done things separately. I had sort of jammed with Randy, our original drummer, and Todd in Randy's basement, which was fun. But we were only doing it for fun. It was nothing serious. But Glenn and Todd were writing songs, and these songs had keyboards in them. I was a keyboard player at that time. I had not even picked up an electric bass. So these guys knew me as a guy who played the keyboard. They asked me to come in and play the keyboard parts. They had a gig coming up at a battle of the bands. So I learned these keyboard parts and played with them. And I guess they liked my vibe. So I was a keyboard player for a couple of years before I started playing bass.
Now, there's some keyboards in the albums when you hear, the full albums like Fear and Coil and some of the other albums that you come out. Do you play in the studio, or do you have a studio musician come in and do that for the albums?
That's all me.
Okay.
I really discovered a lot of things. When we were making the Fear record, they had a Hammond organ at the studio. And actually, no, we rented a Hammond organ from a guy. We made the record in Reno, Nevada, and the only Hammond organ we could get our hands on, it had one of those rotating Leslie speakers, and it had a certain sound to it that we couldn't quite, it was different from any other speaker we had ever heard, and we found out later it was because it had one of his kids' Matchbox cars stuck in the speaker.
You can't replicate that later.
No, you can't. But so I really discovered the organ on that record, and I played all the piano and organ parts. We tried to keep it mostly to pianos and organs, organic keyboards.
Did you have any idea when that album came out it was going to have the impact that it did? You had 2 albums that came out previous to that. Was there something about that one that told you, hey, guys, this might be it for us?
I mean, okay. We had made 2 records independently before we signed our record deal.
Yeah.
So our record company was kind of waiting for this 3rd record, and it was no big secret that they were very much waiting for the 3rd record where we had a real budget. We were going to have a real producer for the first time. We worked with a guy named Gavin McKillop, who and we went away to a studio. It was paid for by the record company, so the quality level of everything went way up. And also our responsibility to turn in a good record went way up. And I think we all took it very seriously, and we tried to do our best work. And it wasn't a hit right away. It took about 8 months for the record to catch on. Eventually, All I Want ended up getting used in a commercial that aired during the Olympics.
Jeez.
And the public finally decided they had heard that song enough that they wanted to hear it some more.
It almost sounds a bit like when Fall Out Boy was huge. They were in NBA pre-games. They were in commercial. You couldn't watch TV without hearing some song from Fall Out Boy.
You have to have a certain amount of saturation. You know, that's why people think that they can pay money to get Spotify plays and things like that, because they think that there are real people out there listening to it when there probably aren't. But you have to hear a song a certain number of times in order to know if you even like it or not. So that's what happened with us. We finally reached that point with All I Want, and then we were able to follow it up with Walk on the Ocean, and the album ended up selling 1 million copies. So go figure.
Amazing. Talking with Dean Dinning, he's going to be here in Tulare, actually. Good Intentions Tour, July 18th at Adventist Health Amphitheater. Sixpence None the Richer going to be opening for them. It's going to be one heck of a show. Let you know how to get tickets here in just a bit. And now, again, full disclosure, again, you can't see this because we're on the phone, but for those watching the video, I am wearing right now my authentic Dulcinea concert T-shirt. I have also around my neck my Toad the Wet Sprocket VIP lanyard, which I got when I saw you guys with the Last Summer on Earth tour with Bare Naked Ladies at Vina Robles Amphitheater in Paso Robles a few years ago.
Ah, yes.
In fact,
that was a fun tour.
now we're going to see,
guys.
because we caused a bit of a scene, my wife and I, when we were backstage for that. Well, first of all, this was in the shadow of COVID, so we all had to be backstage with our masks on, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I have to tell everyone, no, that really is me behind the mask with the guys from Toad. But my wife actually was wearing this T-shirt, and someone else who was backstage tried buying it off her for $100, and she said, "Make it $1,000, you've got a deal."
Yeah, that was way too low. He was lowballing.
Yeah.
He thought she didn't know what it was worth. But yeah, hold out for more is my advice.
Yeah, that was my thinking on it. So I know when COVID was going on that Glenn had his Squirrel Sessions. In fact, I had a Squirrel Sessions T-shirt on when I met you guys backstage.
Uh-huh.
What did you do during that time to keep yourself busy?
I was actually, we made a record during that time called Starting Now.
Yep.
And we had started the record right before lockdown happened. We had all the basic tracks done, which is the bass and the drums and the basic sort of guitars that you would play live. And then we just worked separately, emailing files back and forth, and we actually finished a record during COVID and ended up releasing it eventually. But I ended up doing a lot of remote work. I know a lot of musicians, and we were all in the same boat, and I worked with people. We wrote songs. We recorded songs. We, got songs in TV shows briefly, but then TV production shut down, so there was no opportunity for that. But there was a lot of music that was made during COVID, and a really good thing that I think happened is that a lot of people learned how to play the guitar during COVID by watching YouTube videos. I don't know if you've ever done that or if you play the guitar.
Everything that I've done, everything I've learned to do around the house, I've learned because of YouTube video.
Yeah, I know, it's fantastic. But the world of the guitar became this whole thing during COVID because people had so much time to practice. And so that made me really happy that people were out there actually learning our songs and covering our songs, and you can see them on YouTube all over the place.
The song that got my kids into you guys, and we didn't even know you were a part of it, is we have Netflix, and we watched during COVID Animal Crackers. And your song, One of These Days, came on. My daughter, who's 13 now, just fell in love with that song. And I know that movie was made during COVID. How did that happen, your involvement with that movie?
And you think that you're a super fan, but you know who's the biggest super fan is Scott Christian Sava, who is the director and writer of Animal Crackers.
Gotcha.
He reached out to us on Facebook, which nobody who's for real ever reaches out to you on Facebook. But I decided, what could the harm be to just see what this guy's all about? So we struck up a conversation. Turned out he was the real deal. He had worked in the video game world and had done a lot of animation, and he had this idea for this movie, and he really and he was going to be his own music supervisor, and he's like, if I say Toad's in the movie, Toad's in the movie. I was like, okay, great, it's your decision. So we started working with them on what kind of song they needed for that spot, and we wrote the song to order. It was for the scene. They had the scene already cut. We did have to write the song at a certain tempo, but the song that came out, it was great. We love it.
Now, I've heard conflicting stories when artists have done songs for movies or TV shows. Did you get a chance to see that actual scene ahead of time, or did he just describe it to you?
He actually sent us the cut version of the scene with the temporary music that they had in there. And so we were able to shut the audio off and write the song to the scene.
Very cool. Talking with Dean Dinning again. Good Intentions Tour stopping off at Adventist Health Amphitheater in Tulare, July 18th. Sixpence None the Richer opening for them. You can get tickets at spadeentertainment.com. So I'm not sure how you found out about getting this particular stop on the Good Intentions Tour, but be honest with me. When you saw you were playing at Adventist Health Amphitheater in Tulare, did you have any idea where that was?
I had never heard of Tulare before, but I understand it's near Visalia and Fresno, which I've certainly been to before.
Okay.
We're excited to play a nice amphitheater. I understand it's a new place.
Absolutely.
So we do a lot of shows like that where we want to establish the idea that artists are going to make this a stop on their tours. It's a great place to play in between Southern California and the Bay Area. So we're really hoping that people come out and have a good time. I know there's a lot of people that love live music out there, and it should be just a beautiful night of great music.
Yeah, and the only reason I ask is when I first moved here in 2011, and I heard that the interview was for a radio group in Visalia. I've lived in California since 1984, 85. I didn't know there was anything between Bakersfield and Fresno. So for friends of mine that I still have in Illinois, because I was born and raised there, when I tell them about Visalia and Tulare, they're like, there's a part of California that you can't get direct access to the ocean? Seriously?
Yeah. It's the part you drive through to get to Yosemite. That's what we always said.
But you're going to love it. The Zumwalt Park is where it is. It's been this great destination for a while. Again, they just opened the venue unofficially last year. They had a big grand opening just a few weeks ago that I had a chance to be to. I have not seen a show there yet. You guys will be my first, again, Good Intentions tour with Sixpence None the Richer opening for Toad the Wet Sprocket July 18th at Adventist Health Amphitheater. Get tickets at SpadeEntertainment.com. I've heard we may have tickets to give away as we get closer to that event. Dean Dinning, I really appreciate the time today. Can't wait to see you guys on July 18th, and we're going to have some fun.
Thanks for having me.